The next step on your trail map, after you've done your cheat sheet and you've shown your camp counselor, is to do your revising and editing passage. My hope is that by having a cheat sheet, you won't need to write everything on this. But for the sake of Skittles, let's go ahead and let's write your proofreading marks along the side, because that'll only take us a few seconds. So when you see a new passage like this, obviously your name's on the front, but you can write it here. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. The next way to get a tally mark is to do your proofreading marks. Caret up, caret down, caret with a comma, period with a circle, SP, bloop bloop, slash, 3 lines, arrows, wrong tense, and wrong word. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. My next strategy is to set my intro off by itself. The reason we do this is there's never going to be a mistake in the introduction, and it gives you useful information, what the story's going to be about and whether or not it's revising or editing. Samantha imagines that her pets talk to one another the way humans do. Have you ever stopped to think if your pets talk to each other like humans do? This gave her an idea. Read the story Samantha wrote and look for any corrections. So if it says revisions, it's going to be revising. But if it says mistakes or corrections, you know that it's going to be editing. Most of you like editing better than revising, but this is going to be an editing passage, so we're going to be looking for spelling, capitalization, and punctuation mistakes. If you put brackets around your intro and you circled or underlined keywords in your intro, give yourself a tally mark. The next strategy that we're going to do is we're going to label the different parts of our story. Our intro was A. We underline our title and we label it B. There are no pictures or anything else on this story, so we don't need to label anything else C. So if you did that, give yourself a tally mark. The next strategy that we use is to cheat. The first question says, what change, if any, should be made in sentence 5? So we're going to color sentence 5. The next one, what is the correct way to write sentences 11 and 12? So we're going to color in sentence 11 and sentence 12. You can even put parentheses around it, because if it's asking you a question about them together, more than likely they want you to analyze those two sentences together. The last one says, what change, if any, should be made in sentence 20? So you're going to highlight sentence 20. What change, if any, should be made in sentence 41? You're going to highlight sentence 41. How should sentence 45 be changed? So you should have highlighted sentence 45. So, if you cheated and now you know, we already know what they're going to do. They're going to ask us a question about all the sentences that we highlighted. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. Now we're ready to read our story. Oliver's first night. Oliver has been in the animal shelter for 2 long weeks. Other dogs had come and gone, but Oliver had never been chosen by a family. Then one day it happened. A mom, a dad, and a little girl named Lauren pointed at him. They took Oliver out of his pen and put him in their car. The first thing that I see about this sentence is that there is a fanboys word. So let's check our fanboys. You can look right here at your fanboys words. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Let's look. Let's cover it up. They took Oliver out of his pen. That's complete. Put him in their car. That is not complete. So if it's complete on the left, not on the right, it does not need a comma to make it right. The other word that I see is a homophone that sometimes is confused. This there is the opposite of here. We didn't go over there, we came over here. There's another there, T-H-E-Y-R-E, which is they are. They put him in they are car. That doesn't make sense. The other car is the car that belongs to them. T-H-E-I-R, the car that belongs to them. So in this case, this is wrong word. It should be T-H-E-I-R. If you found that mistake, give yourself a tally mark. Oliver was finally on his way to a place he could call home. All that day, Oliver played with his new family. He wrestled with toys, nipped at ankles, and chased balls. This is a series. What did he do? He wrestled with toys, comma, nipped at ankles, comma, and chased balls. That's a series in a sentence. Oliver was happier than he had ever been. Then night fell. While the people went upstairs, Oliver was left asleep downstairs in the basement. Well, while the people went upstairs, that is not a complete sentence. And it might ask you a question that says, which of the following sentences is not complete? But when I'm looking at this sentence, I'm also reminded of my awubis words that while is an awubis. So I'm going to circle while, and it says when a sentence starts off with one, you must put a comma after the clause. And I think that would fix our problem if you bleep out the period and insert a comma. Oliver is his name, otherwise we would lowercase it, but Oliver is his name, so it needs to be capitalized. While the people went upstairs, comma, Oliver was left to sleep downstairs. So these two sentences need to be combined because while is an awubis. So if you did that, give yourself a tally mark. Oliver was scared. Where was his family? He didn't want to be by himself. I can't sleep alone, he thought. He howled a long, loud cry. That was when Oliver learned that he wasn't alone after all. "What's the problem, buddy?" someone asked in a raspy voice. Oliver's ears stood up on his head. This goes back to what we talked about last week. Oliver's, well, we're not talking about more than one Oliver, otherwise we'd add an S. Oliver's, we're going to look at the word right after it. It's the ears that belong to Oliver, so it shows ownership. It's Oliver's ears. So you should have put an apostrophe to make it apostrophe S to show ownership. Oliver's ears, the ears that belong to Oliver. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. Oliver's ears stood up on his head. He growled, trying to sound tough. He looked across the room and saw a big glass box with a light inside it. There was water in the box too. 3 small things seemed to be gesturing to him from the box. They weren't people, but they weren't dogs either. Oliver's loneliness was replaced with curiosity. "What are you?" he asked. "We're pets," replied a creature with long legs and a lanky body. "I happen to be a shrimp." Now, can you imagine having a pet shrimp? "I'm a clownfish," a striped orange and white thing said with a giggle. "And I'm a piece of coral," saying something that looked like a colorful rock with many arms. The 3 began to play. The shrimp swam after the clownfish, and the coral cheered, waving its arms wildly. The shrimp tagged the fish and turned back to Oliver. "What do they call you?" he asked. "Oliver," barked the pup. "Oliver, you look like you need some bedtime friends," said the clownfish. "That's us," the coral chimed in. Oliver wagged his tail in delight. Suddenly sleepy, he rested his nose on his paws. 41, we're going to look for mistake. Then he glanced again at his new friends and let out a contented sigh. Glanced is misspelled. You should have put an SP. You could bleep out the whole word, or you could just bleep out the S and insert the C. Then he glanced again at his new friends and let out a contented sigh. "Thank you," he mumbled softly. If you fix glance, give yourself a tally mark. That night, and every night after that, Oliver snoozed in the glow of the fishbowl. He no longer felt lonely. Mom, Dad, and Lauren was upstairs. Mom, Dad, and Lauren is a series, so that's right. But Mom, Dad, and Lauren, that's 3 people. If it was Lauren was upstairs, that would be okay. Mom was upstairs, that would be all right. Dad was upstairs, that would be all right. But Mom, Dad, and Lauren was upstairs. This is the wrong tense or the wrong word. You should change was to were. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. They would be back in the morning. But for now, he had a talkative shrimp, a funny clownfish, and a pretty coral to keep him company. Oliver had found new families, one for day and another for night. This is kind of a cool story. So what we're going to do right here, or what you need to do, is, so far, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You could have 10 tally marks so far in your story. The other important thing is I haven't gone on to my questions, but you can tell by looking at my story that I've tried to find mistakes. This is what your story should look like. If it doesn't, then you're not doing it correctly. You may click on to the next video.